4, 3.
And we are back, folks, here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the Big1050.com. Sam Webb, Mr. Ira Weintraub on the other side, and it is time for the MGoBlog Roundtable. And lots to catch up on, fellas. We got the SEC Media Days going on. We got Big Ten Media Days coming up. We had our first look, our first glimpse, the 2025-2026 Michigan basketball Wolverines. A lot to break down and a lot to dissect. But first of all, good morning and welcome to Seth Fisher. Seth, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. We're doing the show, and then I'm getting in the car, and I'm going off into the woods, and I'm not going to be no one's going to be able to even find me.
Okay, there you go.
No service, nothing, just friends and beer.
You're not going up to Flint on the way for a coney dog?
Going the opposite direction. We're going down 75. We got to drive through. Unfortunately, they put this stupid state Ohio in the middle of all the places I'd like to go. So you got to drive through this entire flat, silly state that my kid actually uses when they make fun of each other. They're like, "Oh, that's so Ohio," and like that's like a nasty word.
Ohio
like, yeah,
Riz is like a thing. Like Ohio,
Rizzler.
Ohio is a thing. The kids nationally are ripping on Ohio. It's a beautiful thing.
She explained it to me. Skibbity is like a guy who comes out of a toilet, and Ohio is the worst word in that whole phrase.
Raising those kids right. And then, of course, Seth Fisher. How are you this morning?
You did me. Craig
Ross, how are you this morning?
I'm all right. I'm thinking about Brian. Where have you gone? Joe DiMaggio comes to mind. Where has Joe DiMaggio gone? I don't know.
He has to take his kids to camp over near me, and then he can't get back in time. So he was trying to find like a place he could get online, and he can't.
Yeah.
So no, he's not like, people are like, oh, he like disappeared, like go again.
He found a place last week, and then he found out they didn't open till 10.
Right. So it's like it's the middle of summer, whatever.
Yeah, he'll be back.
You got to take care of the kids, man. You got to take care of the kids for the kids. All right, so fellas, SEC Media Days going on. Why is that relevant to us? Because the Big Ten and the SEC control the future of the college football playoff. So it states in this memorandum of understanding, these other leagues have to get in where they fit in. The SEC wants this 5-11 model. So too do the rest of these leagues, by the way. Their opinion just doesn't really matter for much. The Big Ten, on the other hand, wants this 4-2-2, whatever the other numbers are. They want all of that, right? So Sankey has made it pretty clear. He said, listen, this is what I want. If you don't give me what I want, that's pretty fine. We'll just stay at 12. I don't know who he's threatening. I actually like it at 12, Seth and Craig. Now, I do wonder, though, in this battle of wits, in this campaign, if you will, between these two conference heads, who do you think will win? I don't have much confidence in Tony Petitti. What say you? Because I thought Sankey, he obviously handles himself pretty well. How compelling a case do you think Tony Petitti will make when he steps to the mic next week?
I mean, no one here has any faith in Tony Petitti, but Tony Petitti doesn't have to do much, right? He just let Greg Sankey do the work because whatever's good for the SEC is good for the Big Ten and terrible for college football. It's hard to get up about these arguments. Like, oh, we have 12. Should we have 16 teams? I did a study one time and I had to look back every year that we have decent enough rankings that I could like look at the teams and say, I know about that Wisconsin team and whether they deserve to be in or not. And really the cutoff was 6. Once you got past the team that was number 6 at the end of the season, because the season doesn't tell you much. You don't play enough games. You're kind of in your own little corner, and especially in the SEC, they don't play very many SEC games. They play 8 games in the SEC. So a lot of times the teams that end up on the top are the ones just happen to skip the really the decent, all the B plus teams. Like they never play the Wisconsins, but they have like one big game that's Alabama LSU or Alabama Georgia, and the winner of that one then looks like a superhero, and the loser of that one has played nobody else, but they've beaten everybody else, so they look like a superhero. It's a great setup that Sankey's got, but it doesn't really tell you much about the teams. But when you get to the end of the season, there's usually about 6 that have a case if they beat the other teams in a playoff to have been the champion. Once you get to 12, you have this problem where team number 11 or team number 9, who might be like a Big Ten team that lost 2 games, like Ohio State last year, who lost to Michigan 13-10 as a 20-point under. Michigan was a 20-point underdog at Ohio State. They get pepper sprayed. The coach is sitting there asking what happened, right? And that team won a national championship. Was that a national championship team when you look at the strength of the season? Did Oregon have a better season than Ohio State if you just match up those, all of those games against each other? Because if you can't answer that definitively, yes, that was the best season. Why is that the national champion? Then you're a playoff champion, right? You're a second season champion. You won a tournament, which is still cool. National champion of the basketball season is the tournament winner. That's fine. But I think that we've lost anything else in the season by having too many teams in the playoff, because all it is getting into the playoff. So if they expand it, contract it, I don't care anymore because it's already a second season now. So just make it whatever you want.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know I'm going to be the most minority view ever, but I don't care about the playoffs. And personally, I like the mythical national championship better. And
Wow,
you're
old, Craig.
I am old, and I like.
Yeah.
I like the dopey Nebraska fans thinking in 1997 that they were better than Michigan. I mean, a complete delusion that Michigan would have waxed that team up one side, down the other, and with a Nebraska team with no quarterback aside from anything else. And so, yeah, I kind of like that better than the playoffs, which and what Seth said is exactly accurate. You don't have a national champion. What you have is a playoff winner. And do you really think that it's a definitive that Ohio State was the best team in the country last year? I don't think so. I think they were one of the best teams. I'm not sure there was a best team last year, but they did get beaten at home by a team with no quarterback.
It was a 19.5 point underdog.
Right. So, I mean, that's fine. They're national champion under the rule. I don't begrudge them their national championship or even anything close to begrudging it. But what system do I like better? I like the old bowl system better.
I don't. I think there has to be a happy medium between that and going to 16 teams. I think your 16 teams only benefits the TV networks. I'm opposed to that because I think you water down the product. I like where we are at 12. I don't want to see more Penn States. What do I mean by that? You see Penn State's schedule. I mean, it's terrible. I mean, again, this year is, and you run the risk of having more teams think, oh, we can just James Franklin our way through a season, back our way into the playoff, and make people think we actually did something. People actually think that James Franklin, that Penn State actually improved last year. No, they didn't. They didn't play anyone. That's all they did. They just had a favorable schedule, and they James Franklin their way into the playoff, and they played SMU and Boise State in the playoff. That's all they did. And I don't want to see teams be able to do that. Now, can you mitigate that? Can you cut that out of the playoff process? I think the more spots you put in there, the more you expand the playoff, the more you run the risk of having teams say, all I got to do is just build my schedule in a way that makes it conducive to get me in, and then I'll play the season at that point.
Well, I think if you're serious about wanting to know a national championship, you'd get rid of the SEC, you'd get rid of the Big Ten, and you'd run a relegation type system, and you'd have, this guy is right. It's not even a playoff. It's an invitational, he says, and that's on the money. To me, you want to do that, then okay. You can have Michigan, Ohio State, whoever it is, USC, Alabama, Georgia, all in one conference, blasting it out. Now, will they ever agree to that? Never. None of them. The only one who might agree to that is Dusty May. If you look at his basketball schedule this year, I mean, but they'll never agree to that. But otherwise, the whole notion of a national championship is pretty delusional. The year Georgia beat Michigan in the semis, Georgia was the national champion, and we know that because you watched them play, right? And they were heads and shoulder better than anybody else. Michigan was heads and shoulders the national championship in 1997. You didn't need Michigan to play Nebraska to know that. So I'm not.
But Craig, that Michigan-Nebraska game would have been awesome.
Right.
Would have been a blowout.
I mean, listen, my generation is way beyond me on this thing. I'm kind of like I didn't mind the bowl system as much, but first of all, the money guys have to make their money somehow, and I want them to make their money in the way that least annoys me. And one way that doesn't annoy me is having good games. Like I didn't mind having Tennessee play Ohio State last year. That was a good, that was a good matchup. I wanted to see what happened if that happened, right? Tennessee had to go to Ohio Stadium in the cold. That was cool. I like that. When's the last time an SEC team like Tennessee had to go to a place like Ohio Stadium?
Okay, I'll grant you that's a fair point. I mean, that is a fair point. So in the playoffs, you might get one or two good games.
So, but
that's about what you had last year.
If they don't try to, if they're trying to TV it, right? And I think fans can step back and say, look, you do your TV thing, whatever, you make your money the way you need to. I'm going to get some good games. And then if we think about it that way, you could do lots of different formats that just get you better games. That's what the bowls were in the first place. But what happened is you had the playoff, and if you didn't make the playoff, nobody cared about the bowls anymore. They cannibalized the entire bowl system, and you can't get that back. No one wants to go to the Peach Bowl anymore.
So here's the question: Do we want Tony Petitti to win? Now you have Big Ten coaches. Brett Bielema said, and Ryan Day said, we would be amenable to the 5-11 model, what the SEC wants, if the SEC goes to 9 league games. Ira's contention is that's not what Tony Petitti, that's not his position. He could give less than a damn about the 9 league games. The reason he wants the 4-2-2-2-1-1 model, if that's what it is, whatever it is he wants the opportunity to have a championship Saturday at league level where he could have play-in games for the college football playoff. So he could have the regular Big Ten championship game, but he could also have the play-in games. And I actually don't want that. I don't want play-in games in the Big Ten. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
No, he's listening to his TV guys, right? Tony Petitti is just a suit, and whatever the TV people want, they tell him, and he'll just clap it and say whatever, right? And then he goes to the Big Ten meetings in Michigan State, says whatever, players are getting hurt by having the signs, and then he'll say that, right? There's no brain inside of Tony Petitti. He's just there. And so he's just saying what the TV people want, which is inventory. And inventory is like, what's the 2 biggest matchups we can make, right? That's why they added USC to the Big Ten, because they're like, okay, USC Michigan, USC Ohio State, that's inventory. That's all they think in terms of. I'm saying if they need inventory and we want good games, why don't we just come up with a system, especially like, during Christmas break, they're not in school, right? Like have some more games then. Have these maybe come up with a way for the fans to decide who plays whom, and then you have more information. That's kind of the only things that I want. I want good games, and I want to create information. Now, no one's going to be talking about this, right? They're not saying, but our goals kind of align. If you get to the end of the season and you're having a system that creates a rematch which you get in Big Ten championships all the time, which you get sometimes, with the playoff formats, the more they make it rigid, you're going to have more rematches. Those destroy information. You already had an answer who's going to win between these two teams, right? Ohio State and Michigan play in Ohio Stadium. What happens? Michigan wins 13-10. Period. End of the story. Michigan won that game. Michigan beat Ohio State in 2024. Ohio State played Oregon twice last year. You destroyed the first information. We had a game between Ohio State and Oregon. And what did we learn? That Ohio State can't manage a clock at the end of the game and Oregon wins. Right? That was information. And then we destroy that information by having rematches. What they should be doing, and both of us align in this, and I wish that the TV guys, because I know Tony Petit doesn't matter, but the TV people do pay attention and try to figure out what the fans want. What the fans want are good games that we haven't seen before. And so you don't really need a, quote, playoff system. It doesn't have to be that structured. It could be fairly unstructured, but have a system where you create, kind of like the Bulls, but play them earlier, where you just have, we need to know this. Is Penn State for real or not? Okay, let's have them play Oklahoma and see what happens, right? And then you have information. Then you actually made a team that you're going to get in. Indiana, last year was another team we didn't have much information on. They played an easy schedule, right?
Right.
They almost lost to Michigan, too. But look, they get into the playoff, and then you find out who they are. Boise State, we could have those games in a structure that doesn't make it like, okay, now you win and you move on. It could be like, okay, you win, and then we assess where everybody stands, and then we decide the best 4 teams go in the playoff, and the other teams can be in bowl games like they used to be. Because one of the things the bowl system was very good at is teams got to the end of the season, and half the teams who played in bowls ended the season on a win. If you have a playoff structure, Tennessee's season ended in December in Columbus, Ohio, right? Like those guys, they played well enough. They deserve a trip to like a nice place. Tennessee's not that nice in January. But they could have gone and played in Florida. They could have gone and played in Texas somewhere. But when we make it too rigid, we destroy information and we put ourselves into a box that we don't have to be in. We just want good games.
Well, I wonder about that. I mean, did anyone outside of the Michigan and Alabama fan base last year watch that game?
Actually, they did.
They did. The stadium was empty, or not empty, but it wasn't full.
Ratings were outstanding
for a bowl game. For a bowl game these days, that thing was out of this world. That's exactly what the bowl people want. That's why they want Michigan and Alabama in those games, right? Because those teams draw. And sometimes, people hate watch those teams.
Numbers on it, Craig. It was 6.55 million viewers. It was the most watched non-CFP bowl game on cable in 9 years.
Wow. Okay.
Because it's Michigan and Alabama.
Okay.
And it's not just Michigan and Alabama fans. People hate watch it too, right? Especially when Michigan is beating Alabama after Alabama was oh, we deserve to be in. They said, Greg Sankey, we deserve to be in the playoff. We're Alabama. You lost to freaking Texas, right? And we deserve to be in the and then they just get beat by Michigan. And then Ohio State was pointing there Ohio State was doing the Leo DiCaprio meme, right? Look, see, they do. When Wake Martindale isn't screwing around with his NFL stuff, they're really hard. See, everybody see.
They beat our ass. They beat your ass too.
They beat us too. They did the same thing to us, except for without the rain. We had pepper spray instead of rain.
Without their main guys. That's without their main guys.
Yeah, I mean, Michigan beat Alabama with the JVs. They had 5 starters out. So,
And the other thing was, and football guys, this is why anyone was watching that, but football guys loved it because, everyone was talking about Jalen Milroe is oh man, he can play his way into the top. Now he's going to go and play Michigan and show what he can do against this secondary and watch what he does to Jair Hill. He's just going to eat that guy alive. And then the same thing. It's always been a problem with him, right? Blitz him off the edge, and he's nothing. And it was just, I'm sorry. Every time Michigan and Alabama plays each other, it's just a beautiful, beautiful game, and it's great college football. That's why people tune into these things.
Yeah, I don't know how they are gonna not, in their zeal to add this greater inventory. I don't know how they're gonna keep these teams from bastardizing these schedules, man. Because Penn State, James Franklin has figured it out.
Who do they play this year, Sam? I don't even know what Penn.
Villanova.
Villanova?
They play. Yes.
Villanova doesn't have a football team, do they?
Yeah. Penn State figured it out. Like the only teams they play Oregon and they play Ohio State, and they have buys before both. How they work that out, I don't know. But you look at the rest of their schedule, it's like it's cake freaking walk city. Like, how did you manage this schedule at Penn State?
They got a broken Nevada team. They got FIU, the middle F.
Yeah.
They play at Iowa. They gotta go to Kinnick, and that one the time is TBA, so they might be Kinnick at night
game.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Non-conference is a joke. Like you should be penalized for the type of non-conference schedule they have.
I mean, Michigan won a national championship with a joke of a non-conference schedule too. And we lost games. We had like UCLA and stuff scheduled for those, and like we moved the Oklahoma. And Michigan knew what we were doing too.
And yet, but see, the difference is Michigan had to play the gauntlet.
Yeah,
Michigan had to play Penn State and Ohio State. These dudes don't. They don't have to play Michigan. They have to play Michigan on their schedule. So there's a huge difference there. Like
you can make the argument that they got to bye beforehand, but they have to play Oregon and Ohio State, and those are two of the best teams in the Big Ten. So I mean, they do have to prove themselves in the end. Now I don't know if people are going to make up a thing against Franklin that he was stealing people's signs, and all of a sudden this is the big thing. I don't know what else is in football that nobody else that everyone knows goes on, and no one else is suddenly going to be cheating. They poached. That's it. They're going to have a big poaching scandal this year, and Franklin's going to have to sit out because all those transfers that Penn State has were poached.
Well, he'll have an opportunity. He'll have an opportunity to prove that they can actually get it done against real teams. Because, yeah, you're right. People did question Michigan about this schedule is a cakewalk. And then when it came time to do it against real teams, what did they do? They went out and they punked those teams even without they punked Washington at the line of scrimmage. They went and took care of Bama in the playoff. They beat Ohio State. They beat Penn State without they won those games without Jim Harbaugh.
They beat Penn State and decided we didn't have to pass the ball once.
Didn't have to pass the ball. Meanwhile, James Franklin can't score from the 1 yard line with 4 cracks at it. At home. Come on, man. Against Ohio State. You got Ohio State at your place at the 1 yard line. Then this is your chance to exercise every demon from your entire career. And you can't score? How is that possible? How do you not get that done? I mean, it's so bad that he's arguing with fans walking up the tunnel. You should be taking it on the chin. So I'm sorry, man. I just not. But he gets it. All I got to do is make the playoff. Let's lay this schedule out in a way that just allows me to get there. And that's enough to get by. I mean,
they can lose to Ohio State and Oregon and still make the playoffs. They'll say, 10-2. Even if they beat 10 meatballs, right?
Hey, you might have a good Nebraska team. They do get Nebraska this year. They get them at home, but Nebraska might be one of those teams. We've been saying this every year.
Nebraska.
And you got people actually buying Penn State as a national championship favorite.
I see them number 1 in a lot of the preseason rankings.
Right. I'll even give you them being a contender just by virtue of their schedule. But a favorite, wow. Man, what have you seen from James Franklin or Drew Aller that would have you say they're a favorite to win any kind a Big Ten championship, let alone a national championship?
You look at all the other teams, nobody looks good this year. That's the thing. Everybody kind of lost everything. Ohio State just had their championship, and they kind of hit their crest and moving down. All the main schools. And the other thing is they kind of look around. They're like, well, the Big Ten in the era of NIL, the Big Ten is kind of getting more talented teams than the SEC is, right? Like we've been watching Michigan win recruiting battles against Alabama. stealing players off of Alabama's roster for the same role at Michigan. And we're just like, oh yeah, ho hum, Saint, here we go. Something's changed. And I think that nationally, when people are looking at like who's good, what's going on right now, they're kind of looking at these top teams, the big spenders in the Big Ten, and be like, those guys can hold on to their players. And that's what Penn State did. They held on to seniors. They had a good season last year, and they held on to their team. And a lot of teams that are competing with them did not hold on to their team. And then we're whining in the press about NIL. So I don't know. We can say Penn State is a fraud. Everybody's a fraud. These are college football teams.
Somebody, all right. When is the last time Penn State won a big game against an evenly matched opponent? Like 2016, probably against that Ohio State game. Like they don't win against evenly matched opponents. They don't. I mean, you look at it, whether it was Ohio State last year from the 1 yard line, the playoff game against Notre Dame, where Drew Aller throws the interception. I mean, it's like they don't get it done. Whether it's the coach or the quarterback, in crunch time situations, they don't get it done.
It was just like a perfect. You guys can't see Sam's face, but he did the Brad Pitt thing. They don't. It was perfect.
So, I mean, talk about teams to not bet on. Penn State and LSU. Don't bet on them. Take the under on both of those teams. We were talking to Eric Adelson earlier this week. His wife, Andrea, great writer for ESPN. She had a piece. Is this the year where Brian Kelly wins the national title? No, this is not. No, he will not win the national championship. Thank him for being Brian Kelly because he helped you get. He played a role in you getting Bryce Underwood. So,
yeah. That story, just a pump handle of victories, which is still on sale on our site. Sam's article in there kind of goes into the story of Bryce and one of the main things that happened, one of the kind of moments was he goes down to LSU when those fans just get all over their team for losing. Was it the Alabama game that he's down there for? Yeah, and it wasn't that they lost to Alabama; it's that the fans got on their team for it. And he'd been at Michigan for the Texas game. I think he was here for the Oregon game. He'd been here for a lot of Michigan games, right? He lived next door. He saw a lot of Michigan games. So he was used to how the fans treat the team. And I think that's maybe I'm going to say it's across the Big Ten thing. It's Ohio State fans are probably worse than LSU fans. But Penn State's another one of those schools that has a little bit of cult to it, right? And I know it because I recognize it because we do it too, where just, we love our guys. And I think that's an underrated thing that Penn State has. Penn State fans are a rock for that program. And whatever Franklin does in the big games and whatnot, they get good players who want to stick around at Penn State because they want to play for those fans. That's Penn State's superpower.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, Penn State does have good fans. So that has to be something that has some element of compulsion in recruiting. Aside from the fact there's a lot of good football players in the state of Pennsylvania, and they still are, the school in that state. But that I think that's true. I think it's true, and it may, and the angst of certain other fan bases may be less compelling to some kids. So there's something to that, Seth.
Well, so pump hail to the victors before we go to a break there, Seth.
Well, MGoBlog.com/25, and you can find it. I got a Kindle version up right now. The print version is being printed. So they actually they wrote me this morning that the first page just came off the press. So the print version is being printed. We're going to have that in August, and you can still get in on the Kickstarter. We don't have it up on our store yet, but you can still get in on the Kickstarter. You can get a shirt with it right now. You get a copy of Victor's, our yearbook for 21 to 23, with your order. And it's just MGoBlog.com/25. If you do the Kickstarter, get your survey filled out right away so I know where to send it. So I don't have to hunt you down.
One other thing, Seth, what about your big book? Are there any copies of that?
I have 900 copies. So I talked to the printer when I was doing, and they still had they had overprints. And normally they don't want to sell those back because there's, anything that got pulled out just gets put in the pile because, we were worried about the sheet wasn't completely on right now. So they went through those for me, and I had to pay for this. They went through those and made sure that all the copies that we had were good copies, and they sent me everything they got. So I have stock of those right now. I'm making them available to people who buy Hail to the Victors 2025. And when those are gone because that made it so I didn't have to reprint. It's really expensive to print right now. So people know what the economic situation, the political situation is right now, and those have really hurt us. So I was gonna do a reprint of the yearbook, and now at least now I'm not going to until things kind of clear up a bit because it's a little tough to do any kind of business in the United States right now.
All right, we need to get to a break. When we come back on the other side, we got our first glimpse of the basketball team last weekend as Dusty opened up practice, and I was impressed, fellas. I was impressed with the assemblage of talent that he's put together. The big question is the obvious one. Will they be able to shoot? Will this team be able to shoot? We'll dive in. We come back on the other side here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTK, online at the big1050.com.
Clear on the radio.
Yeah. The talent.
They didn't show shooting at this practice.
Well, I thought they shot it at a decent clip. I mean, it wasn't great. I thought LJ shot well in practice last year. He killed it in that first game of the year. He came out and drilled threes right and left. Yeah, he shot it decent. I thought Winters, Grady, and Trey, they knocked out. You know who Elliot Cadeau knocked down a few?
He did, really.
So Dusty said that on catch and shoot threes last year that Elliot Cadeau shot over 40%.
Well, I think in your interview, or maybe it was yours, Sam, that Cadeau said that was his goal this year.
To be a
40% shooter. And I think that strikes a chord because as a standstill shooter, he's okay. Creating his own threes was more problematic. But
based on the amount of improvement, the level of improvement he showed from year one to year two, there was nowhere to go but up, I guess. But it doesn't seem impossible. I mean, that would still be 40% would be like, wow.
That would be, yeah. But he doesn't have to shoot 40%. He has to shoot 35%, 34% we can live with, and it'll be fine. Right. The one thing is the best threes you can get are the inside out threes. When the ball comes inside out and the shooter is squared up, those are the highest percentage threes there are, especially to the corners. And this guy Mara can see over the top and can pass the ball. And, if they can, I know that Matt D did something for you, Seth, criticizing. He loves Mara's offensive game, but said he's, quote, lazy and doesn't get back down the court. I'm not sure if it's laziness or he just can't run the court particularly well. Did you? And,
I mean, you can see why he did not get along with his coach at UCLA.
Right.
And you could also I think he might have had mono in the middle of the season.
Okay. So he just might have been sick.
Coming back from that is like, what's the thing? Oh, you don't have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
So I mean, he might have been. We just might have a bad sample of who he is.
Right.
But like even watching him in practice, the dog per square inch is not very high.
Right.
Back in about 1 minute, guys.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of inches there. So I mean, like
right.
he's just stretched out. He might have a normal level of dog. It's just like he's so tall, right? But that's why you have Johnson in there, though. Right?
Well, Maize Johnson is a whole talk about a dog. I mean, Maize Johnson is Dennis Rodman, but 6'9". In fact, that's I mean, he's Dennis Rodman. I mean, and one of my all-time favorite players. And only he's taller.
That's the point. So Morrow doesn't have to go full out for 35 minutes, right? You get 20 minutes of that guy and tell him, give me all you got for those 20 minutes.
Back in
and
about
we'll have
20
Morris
seconds, guys.
Johnson take all the rest.
Yeah, I like him as an inside-out passer, and that's the place where I think Cadeau can make threes, and other guys on this team can make threes. Now, I'm not going to count on Roddy Gale starting like he finished last year, but who knows? His shot changed somehow late, and it wasn't just that it went in; it was that
Back
he
in
went
10,
from
stand by, guys.
shooting knuckleballs to balls that's had rotation.
And we are back on radio in 5, 4, 3.
And we are back over here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA, online at the big1050.com. Before we get back to the MGoBlog Roundtable, I want to tell those of you who are in the market for a new vehicle, you should get on board with Brighton Ford. Why? Because Brighton Ford is the ultimate destination for your new car or truck. The summer sales event is going on right now, courtesy of Ford. And it is a great time to buy from now through July 31st. Well-qualified lessees can lease a 2025 Escape for as low as $243 a month, or lease a 2025 Bronco Sport for as low as $239 a month, both with only $3,500 down for 36 months. Get 0% financing, $0 down payment, and 0 payments for up to 90 days on select vehicles. Plus, get a complimentary maintenance plan for 2 years. Call 1-800-NEW-FORD or see dealer for details. Get on board with Brighton Ford. You need to get on board with this Michigan basketball team, because I think they've assembled a banger of a team. I think they've gotten more physical in the post with Maize. I think they've gotten more athletic overall. I think they can play more guys. They think they've gotten deeper. The question is, fellas, and I teased this heading into the break. The question is, will they be able to shoot? Will they be able to knock down threes consistently outside of Namari Burnett? And Dusty acknowledged that as a big question. He didn't seem overly concerned, Craig. He said he's pretty optimistic about it, actually. But he acknowledged that is indeed a big question heading into this season.
Well, two things, and I think Dusty must have mentioned this. One is, I don't think they're going to be a bad three-point shooting team. You have guys. I mean, Namari has proven that he shoots the three, and Will Cheddar has proven he can shoot the three. I haven't seen that much Trey McKinney, but the Trey McKinney I've seen is a guy who can shoot the three.
He mentioned and Winters Grady
and Winters Grady can shoot the three. So they have people who are shooters. And this, I will be surprised if this is not one of the best 2 or 3 offensive rebounding teams in the country. I mean, Yaxel goes to the boards, but Maize Johnson gets his hands on everything. I mean, that guy gets to the ball. And so you're going to have him and Yaxel and other guys who can rebound. If you get more shots, you can endure some ability to miss.
That's a piece that I think Dusty May, I hope, changed a little bit from last year, because last year they were always hunting for that perfect shot, and what you end up doing is put a little too much on Danny Wolf, and you end up having a lot of turnovers.
Right.
Turnovers are a 0% chance of points. If he puts up a 2, I'm okay with a few more of these lower percentage shots or lower value shots, because you have that rebounding on this team, right? Like, you put up a bad 2 and Mara gets to it and puts it back. That's 2 point, right? They're going to increase the value of your shots. So losing opportunities for shots is a thing you don't want in this team. And I think that's probably, if you want to look at like where Dusty May can improve, how they build the team from last year. Take some more shots. You don't need to get them that perfect. They are going to run the ball. They're going to run the offense through Axel. He's going to have to shoot outside a little bit, because the centers are not going to be shooters. That's, I think, the question. It's not like, do they have shooters? It's, can you have shooting on your best lineup? Because your best lineup is what? Cadeau, Burnett, Kaysiner, Gale, Yaxel, and then one of the centers, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Like you were shooting on that lineup.
all right.
That's the point. I think you
That
hit
is
it.
the point. That is the point. So to seize on that, talk to Yaxel about that. He said one of the reasons he came back, scouts said you benefit from going back. One of the reasons you benefit from going back is to show that you got a stroke. And he said, I do have a stroke. I can shoot it. Don't believe me, just why. I'm gonna be able to do that. I'm gonna show that I can shoot it. Dusty, he mentioned LJ being able to shoot it better than he showed last year. You've mentioned that, Craig.
Yeah.
You can see him in practice. You can see him in practice.
I watched him, in a warm up last year make 18 or 19 in a row from three. Okay, it's a warm up, but if you're making 18 or 19 in a row from three, you probably can shoot that. You can probably shoot that shot.
It didn't translate the game, so I'm knocked down a few in the open practice, and it's like, okay, that looks good, but you got to translate. You got to make sure it translates to game. So Dusty mentioned being optimistic about that. Roddy, he shot it better before he came to Michigan, and he shot it for most of the year, and then it came back around.
Right.
So he mentioned him, and then of course, like I said, Yaxel said he shoots it better. Adai Mara, so he says to me, I can shoot the three, and I said, well, there's nothing statistically. I think that in your background it says you can shoot. And so what he said basically says, he implies that I wasn't allowed to shoot the three. I buy that. I buy that he wasn't allowed. That Ben Howland basically said, you're already not playing, pal. You shoot threes, you really won't play. If you get out there, you start shooting threes, right?
I love that we've just established anything that blames Mick Cronin, we are down for.
Ben Howland.
Yeah.
You start shooting threes, you really won't play. So he says that he thinks he can bring some of that to the table too. And then when you talk to Maize was maligned for shooting, for playing away from the basket, mid-range, damn sure don't shoot threes. On a team where they shot threes indiscriminately,
they shot like 20% as a team. What do you? Well, you can't hit that.
But if Maize did anything away from the basket, it was like, oh my God, he was committing a crime against humanity.
Well,
right?
That team was built weird. So that Illinois team, their job was to shoot threes, and if you miss, everybody's out on the perimeter and everyone's diving in trying to get the rebounds. So Maize, his job was to just be an absolute bully, because that guy's coming from the outside in to come for a rebound. That's why Illinois was Illinois. And I can understand that, if he's the one shooting, he's not in there rebounding, and that was their superpower, right?
But his point is, listen, if you're a big, you got to be able to shoot in this day and age. You don't go to the NBA if all you do is play around the rim. You got to be able to show that you have skill away from the basket. I believe I have some. Does it need to be honed? Does it need to be developed? Absolutely. And that's part of his decision, a big part of his decision to come to me. I want to stay in the Big Ten, but who can help me develop that part of my game? Dusty May. So I'm at practice 45 minutes after it's over, and Maize Johnson is still out there shooting, right? He's still out there shooting threes. So clearly this is a part of his game that he's going to try to bring to the table. How much of it how much leash are they going to give him that in that regard? I don't know, because that was something I asked him. Look, I know that they're going to give you some leash. I know that developing that part of your game was part of the recruiting pitch. But, young brother, I mean, part of your claim to fame is you are a banger. You are an enforcer around that rim. You give people some act right we don't want people, Trey Kaufman Wren, to come around and punk Michigan anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, we want Michigan wants you to do some of what you were able to do. He said, say less. I know where he basically said, I know where the bread is buttered. I'm still going to do that too. that is coming with me, but I'm going to bring some ability to play away from the basket too. So having him strike that balance is going to be the tightrope act for Dusty, allowing him to do some of the things that got him to come here while also maintaining part of the appeal of bringing him here, and that is he is a banger around that rim.
Well, Seth made one, and you also, Sam. Salient point. I mean, if you take Michigan's likely starting five, I don't know, likely may be a wrong word, but of Cadio, Gale, Burnett, Yaxel, and Merez, there's a shooting issue there, I would say, right? And now that's probably, quote, their best five guys, but is that their best team? And to me, that's a problem that Dusty has, is putting together a team that's getting their best players on the court, but can still put the biscuit in the basket. And so it's a concern. And
you can have creation from good passers, and
yeah,
so I think they're going to need to figure out who can do what, because you can have some of those guys get rid of some of their shooting by creation, right? Like last year, like as long as you had one of Trey or Wolf on the court, you could run your offense. When both those guys were off the court, there was no offense. And I think that what they found later in the season is just like Gale wasn't being able to do it, but Gale could play a little bit of point, right? Just like in the role, right? He could be that shot creator. And if you've got the ball, you don't have to be the one shooting the ball. You could be creating space for somebody else. And that space doesn't necessarily have to be from three. That space can be like, oh, I dish it off to Mara, and then like that ball's going in. So I think that he's got to tweak the lineups. So when, like you said, you look at that, here's our starting lineup. That might not be the starting lineup. What you might want to do is have Roddy be kind of a king of the backups, right? And have him play with Mara, who kind of gives them a 1-2 punch, where you can, and you're gonna have to figure this out over the season. But like maybe LJ, because I think his shots should have gone in last year. There were a lot of them just kind of rimmed out. Like his 3-point shooting was better than the actual result we got, and then Trey kind of becomes part of that too. You got to figure out which lineups are working, which might not be your best five.
Yeah, I think a big deal to your point. I think the shooting issue it's magnified when you consider. I thought things bogged down when teams were able to slow down their big man pick and roll because shooting kind of went in the tank a bit, and the floor started being compressed. And so if you can't put shooting on the floor at the same time as say Yaxel and Merez, because the most exciting thing to me I heard is Yaxel said, I'm developing great chemistry with Merez. He said, this lob chemistry that we're developing right now. And I said, oh man, that sounds like Dallas Mavericks. I'm thinking, and I was alluding to like Luka and Daniel Gafford, Luka and Derek Lively. I'm thinking I'm having these visions, and he kind of smiled and was like, exactly. And I was like, oh, that's what I'm talking about, but you can't do that if you got guys digging every time you put the ball on the floor, because they aren't afraid of, you got shooters out here that's going to make you pay if you're helping every time, Yax puts the ball on the deck. So they got to have some shooting on the floor.
Well, I think they do have a little more ability to create this year than last year, partly because of Cadeau. And I think Yaxel in many ways is like Danny Wolf. And so I'd see that. I also see this as a better passing team. Not that Danny Wolf was a bad passer. He was a good passer. But Yaxel's a good passer. And Cadeau is a great passer. And so Mara is a phenomenal passer out of the post. And so I'm seeing a team that if you've got a better passing ability, you're going to get a higher quality shot. So you can shoot it perhaps at a slightly lower level, and still and still get through, especially if you're killing it on the boards.
I think the X factor is LJ Son, because he's the one guy who, not powerfully, quickly can get to the basket. And that kind of creates a danger that the other guys don't really have. I know Cadeau has some talent. I don't think that him being that ball dominant was good for him at UNC. And the whole idea is to kind of bring it back and have him just be more of a creator. But LJ is the one who I think could shoot from outside. And if you try to play him outside, right, he's going to get to that basket fast. And he can also pass. So the more he develops, I think that's your key X factor this year. And, and Trey could be part of that too. Trey might be the same kind of thing.
I don't want to minimize Trey McKinney, because every time I look at him, I say, this guy can play. So, anyway.
Yeah. All right, folks, that is going to do it for us on this edition of the Michigan Insider, another great MGoBlog Roundtable. Appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. The rest of you, will see you tomorrow here on the Michigan Insider on the Big 1050 WTKA online.